So about last night, unbelievable. What a game we had. Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, Molly Karam here with you. Welcome into First Take. Thanks for being with us. Incredible.
Wow. I envied you just getting to be on site last night. Unfortunately, I only got to watch it on television. I don't know if that counts, but I did watch it on television.
It counts. It doesn't matter whether you watched it on television or was in person. It was electrifying all night long. It was something special, man. I'll never forget it as long as I live. I can tell you that.
Incredible. Let's get right into it. So Chris Jenkins hits that buzzer beater, giving Villanova their second title since '85, first buzzer beater win since '83. Stephen A., you were there. What was your reaction to this win?
Well, I mean, it was amazing. There's no question about it. It was nip and tuck, back and forth. I can't give enough props to Villanova. I picked North Carolina to win this game because of their size, but I kept talking about the trepidation that I had inside because Villanova seemed to be on that Cinderella run, and Skip had alluded to that on many, many occasions. And then for Arcidiacono to come out there and score 7 quick points and be as aggressive as he was, to sit up there and watch him and watch this kid Booth come off the bench. He had scored 27 points combined in 5 postseason games, NCAA tournament games. He dropped 20 last night. To see Hart struggling at times but still making some big shots. Jenkins getting in foul trouble but still making some big shots. That defense of Villanova, to sit up there and to watch how they neutralized the big men. It wasn't even the big men's fault. They were getting open several times. They were available over the top, but the pressure that Villanova was applying to North Carolina's guards, they couldn't see in the interior. They couldn't make the easy entry pass. And that, to me, was what was so brilliant about their defense, because there were opportunities for Meeks. There were opportunities for Bryce Johnson and Isaiah Hicks. But because Villanova was doing such an exceptional job of pressuring North Carolina's guards, it was basically impeding their ability to get the ball inside. And even though the numbers looked great because Marcus Page had 21 and Joel Berry had 20, 15 in the first half, by the way, the fact of the matter is they had to put the ball up, and Villanova, in a very adroit and skillful way, went about the business of forcing Carolina's guards to beat them themselves by trying to score, because they were really stifling them defensively in terms of their entry passes to the post. So I thought those were incredible elements to the game that couldn't go unignored. But in the end, what it came down to was that miraculous shot by Marcus Page to tie the score. And I thought that if it had gone into overtime, that Carolina was going to win this game. But I kept saying there's 4.7 seconds left. There's 4.7 seconds left. Villanova is the kind of team with enough shooters that they can find a way to get the shot off. And then for Arcidiacono to go down there, to use the screen from Achufu, and then to go down court the way that he did and dip it off to Jenkins. Hicks and those boys laid off. Jenkins was the inbounds passer. You usually got to keep your eyes on them, but that's primarily in half-court situations when you're inbounding the ball half-court. Because he inbounded the ball and they had to go the full length of the court, you ignored him to a little bit because you're thinking they just need 2 points to win the game, so we've got to key in on Arcidiacono, and as a result, they ignored Jenkins for a split second, and it cost them a national championship. But Villanova won this game. It wasn't about Carolina losing it. They deserve a whole bunch of credit. It was one of the, if not the most exciting moment in the history of national championship basketball. I tip my cap to them. You know how much I love Jay Wright, Skip. I'm real, real happy for him. But it was a phenomenal, phenomenal moment in NCAA history. It was something special to be a part of, I can tell you that.
And that is why it took me a long, long time to get to sleep last night after what I just witnessed on TV. Now, I started covering Final Fours in 1979. Fortunately for me, that was Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird that actually put the Final Four on the map in Salt Lake City. And from there, Stephen A., I was at all the great games that we're about to talk about in our next topic. But I got to tell you, for me, this was classic, vintage college basketball at the highest level. This was very, very special stuff that we were all privileged to watch, because in the end, you have to step away from this and put it in the perspective of, remember a year ago when we had Duke versus Wisconsin, 3 of those players on the floor that night a year ago would be drafted in the top 10. 5 of those players a year ago would be drafted in the top 24. Last night, I'm not sure there was one NBA starter on the court destined to be an NBA starter. They say Bryce Johnson might be a very bottom of the first-round pick. I'm not even sure about that. He had his struggles last night, obviously, as you talked about Villanova's interior defense, which was just shockingly spectacular all night long. And yet, down the stretch, it got to the point where, and this is very unusual for me to say, I wish we could have declared co-champs last night. That's how special that game was down the stretch. I wish that it could have been called a tie, or that somehow Roy Williams' team could have shared part of that trophy and honor. Because what Marcus Page did over the last minute and 33 seconds of that game was all-time clutch and spectacular. Remember, Marcus Page, with a minute 33 left, he steps back into the corner and just rips a 3. And that brought it back to 70-67 Villanova. And then with 26 seconds left, I still don't know because they didn't have time to replay this, but Marcus Page drives into the trees. He misses the shot, gets his own rebound, and sticks it back in with some little trick shot off the glass that I still don't know how he pulled it off, Stephen A. But he did. And that cut the score to 1 at that point. And then you talked about the 3 that he made with 5 seconds left. I just still don't know how he pulled that one off. Ochefu goes for the steal. Then he has to literally double clutch and be double clutch to make the shot. And I'm thinking he's going to be the most outstanding player, and then we know the rest of the story. And how many times do you see college kids have a play called in a huddle with 4.7 seconds left, and it just turns into a mad scramble? This is a full court mad scramble, and usually the wrong guy ends up taking the shot because they're just kids, and it's crazy, and the pressure is just suffocating. But in this case, they pulled off, as you pointed out, the perfectly executed play. And then we have Arcidiacono, who was named most outstanding player, who runs that play in practice, and he said, I almost always shoot the ball. Of course, yesterday I was making the case he would make the last shot to win for Villanova. So obviously I'm rooting for Arch to just chuck it, man. Just go ahead and go up at the top of the circle and shoot it. And I was shocked that they actually had a plan B, the trailer, as you point out, Chris Jenkins. And Arch ends up screening beautifully for him with a little handoff flip back play. And there was no doubt he was going to go up. And when it left his hand, I had little doubt that was going to at least be very, very close. And it went in. So what a beautifully played final minute and a half of that game by kids who aren't, these are senior laden teams, obviously, with not a lot of pro potential out there. It was classic college basketball, and as much as I'm a little more of an NBA guy than a college guy, but I just sat back and appreciated the memorable greatness that the amateurs gave us last night.
Oh, it was definitely special, no question about it. And you know what? It's interesting that you bring up that point, Skip, because when you see some of the mistakes, if you were watching NBA basketball, you would be like, what you doing? What are you doing? How do you not see Jenkins trailing Arcidiacono and make sure you guard him? How would you sit up there and and then you got to look at the Arcidiacono. Not only does he shuffle the pass to him, but that split second when he runs in front
he screened. It was beautiful.
Of Hicks.
Yeah, he did.
It's sort of like it's a little bubble screen.
It was.
And you're just saying to yourself, if you're watching the NBA, you'll say, you got to know better than letting that happen. But in college, you understand they're college kids, and okay, these are the kind of things that happen with college kids. So the mistakes are forgivable. More importantly, they're foreseeable, which contributes to the excitement. But for Jenkins to step up there and make that big-time shot, and it wasn't an accident, because when he was on the court, he was making shots. Arcidiacono, he started off strong, then he disappeared for a little while offensively, but then he showed up late in the game, when it counted. Booth was a model of consistency last night. He's the Cinderella portion of it all.
Yeah.
All right? Chifu, I mean, he comes up there. This guy is cleaning the floor to make sure that nobody slips on the sweat from the previous dive when he had gone for the steal. It's just crazy.
But as he said after the game, he needed the mop because he knew he was going to have to set the pick right there for Archidiacono going down the left side of the of the court. So he said, I need to make sure I got it as dry as I could. And by the way, he was the guy who fell going for the steal on Marcus Page, who made the slick spot.
That's right.
So he's like, I'm going to get my own slick spot up.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool, man. And that's there's a lot of presence going on there.
It's just special, man.
Whew.
And then even in the end, you know, knowing Jay Wright for as many years as I've known him, I'm incredibly happy for him. He's class personified. I mean, he's a special dude, Skip. And to just see his reaction, I mean, everybody was saying he had no reaction. He had no reaction. Me, knowing him, I mean, looking at him, he looked shocked to me. You know what I mean? It was like, what the hell just happened, you know?
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to Roy Williams because he did a hell of a job, and they did a hell of a job. They were 10 down. They fought back, tied it at 74 off of Page's jump shot. They wouldn't relent. They wouldn't give in. Yeah. And I believe if this game had gone to overtime, I believe what Marcus Page said. They thought they would have won this game if it went to overtime.
Yep.
But I kept saying 4.7 seconds left. It's too much time. It's too much time. Who do we usually say something like that, Skip? We say something like that for a Tom Brady or you know, a Peyton Manning or somebody like that. Here we were saying this about Villanova.
We were.
It's too much time. They got enough time. It was special. And, you know, I ran into Jordan at the game. Obviously, Kenny Smith's there. Vince Carter's there. I mean, the whole North Carolina crew. They thought they had it. They thought they really thought they had it. But Villanova, man, what are you going to say? The college basketball is about Cinderellas, man.
No,
it's
I know.
about Cinderellas.
I felt for Carolina Blue Nation, man, because if you will, they might have needed some Novocaine for what Nova did to them, right? Because that was a shot in the heart, man. I mean, that was hard. That was hard to take because you had Roy Williams, love him or not, on the precipice of winning his third national championship, which would have been one more than the great Dean Smith. So all of a sudden he could have made a case that he was the greatest coach in Carolina history, though he would never have made that case. But he was just
never do that.
Just drained from what happened. And then back to Jay Wright, he did say, you could see him mouth it as the shot left Chris Jenkins' hands because he said he was born to shoot those kind of shots. He's the one who wants that ball in that moment. But he did mouth bang, like bang. Like I just think he thought it was going in. But then he had a very humble reaction because, remember Jim Valvano in '83 just running around madly on the court looking for somebody to hug. And Jay Wright was just like, wow, we did it. And yet he wanted to be humble. He didn't want to show up, you know, in the receiving line, Carolina, because he knew what had just happened. Jay Wright's a huge historian of Final Fours, and he knew how badly that hurt the other coaching staff and how devastating that was going to be. So he wanted to, first he wanted to calm down and make sure it was good that he'd gotten it away before the buzzer. But then I think he wanted to be humble in victory. And he was.
And let me take some time. Let me take a moment to give love to the former coach of Villanova who delivered them their only national championship before last night, and that was Rollie Massimino, who I was on the set of SportsCenter with yesterday afternoon, and he highlighted what he thought it would take. Obviously, he was going to pick Villanova to win this game, but he talked about how they were going to do it. He said Jay Wright's going to change up defenses. He's going to throw different looks at them. They're going to neutralize the interior because of guard pressure on the guards out in the wing with the entry passes. Rollie Massimino basically highlighted exactly what Villanova was going to need to win this game, was going to need to do to win this game, and they went out there and did exactly what he had highlighted. So, I mean, again, it was, you know, Villanova prides itself on being a family. Clearly, Jay Wright obviously talks to Rollie Massimino every week. That's what Massimino said. And it was clear, that they had been talking to one another about what was going to need to be done to beat North Carolina, because what Rollie Massimino highlighted Villanova did to a T, and they did effectively, but it was still an epic encounter. My heart goes out to Roy Williams, who did a phenomenal job. We all know the stress and duress that the university has been through because of that class situation and everything.
Yep.
But when he spoke after the game, and he was so emotional. I'm not the most emotional dude in the world in terms of the tears and all of that other stuff. And sometimes I see that, and I think sometimes coaches engage in that level of hyperbole. That was as real as it gets last night. I would have cried, too, if I was Roy Williams. It would have broke my heart to lose a national championship game like that, to be so close and to have it in the palm of your hands, to know that if it had gone to overtime, it was yours. And for the shot to be at the buzzer, I mean, it doesn't get more heartbreaking than that, man. That was a devastating way to lose. I agree with you, Skip. You wish that it could have been co-champions, considering the way those boys played. But that's not the way the game works, man.
Nope.
It just isn't.
And speaking of their last championship, Stephen A., the only team that's endured a longer drought between titles is Kansas. So, again, congratulations to Jay Wright, a class act, and all of Nova Nation. Now, Skip, you mentioned you've been covering Final Four since the Larry Bird Magic days, so you have
79.
fantastic perspective on this. Since 1979, was this the greatest championship game ever, in your perspective?
Stephen A. Smith, you know I'm old school. You know I'm pretty hard to please when it comes to these greatest ever questions. I'm going out there today. I'm going to say that was the greatest final ever. And I'm doing from top to bottom, not just the last minute and a half. I'm doing how well played the game was from start to finish. And again, a lot of people think that the 83 game, it was a massive, colossal, impossible upset, as you well remember, of NC State over Phi Slamma Jamma, University of Houston, that had played an NBA-style shootout game against the Doctors of Dunk from Louisville on Saturday and won that game, and we all just said, it's over, hand them the trophy, let's go home, and you know what happened. But here's what happened to me. At the end of the game, Derek Wittenberg shot an air ball in that last-second situation, and Lorenzo Charles went up and dunked it. So it had a blunder that turned into a winning shot. Last night, there were no blunders to speak of. Arcidiacono had one bad pass in the final minute, but again, it wasn't a game-changing blunder. It was just well played and well executed all the way down the stretch. And remember, last night, both teams shot high percentages as they had all tournament, but Nova last night shot 58% again. That's what they're averaging coming into the game. They shot 58% from the field last night and 57% from three. And Carolina last night shot 65% from three and 43% from the field. So it was well played and well shot. But now let's go to the 82 game. Probably the greatest collection, this is in New Orleans, and I was there for this one also, of NBA-bound talent that we've ever seen on one floor in a championship game. It was Michael Jordan's freshman year, obviously, James Worthy, Perkins, and against Patrick Ewing and Georgetown. And again, Michael Jordan made a great late shot, but you remember what Freddie Brown did. He committed one of the all-time championship game blunders. He threw it right to James Worthy at the end and ended the game with a bad pass to the wrong guy. He thought he was a teammate. I think he just sort of went blind for a second. So I can't, that disqualifies that game. Then I love the 08 game, the finish of Kansas against Memphis. Remember, Mario Chalmers hit a huge three to send it to overtime. But what happened in overtime? Memphis couldn't hit its free throws. Derrick Rose missed one. Chris Douglas-Roberts missed a couple. So I remember that game as much for them missing free throws as Chalmers making the three. So in the end, just on how well played this game was, on guts and heart and resilience and refuse to lose on both sides, Marcus Page all the way to Chris Jenkins, I got to give this game the edge. It was the most enjoyable, well-played, memorable championship game I can ever remember.
Skip, I'm gonna tell you something. I don't disagree with you. I'm on the same level as you are in terms of this game. It was beautiful, but there's a couple of other games that I want to give strong consideration to. The 82 game with John Thompson and Dean Smith going against one another when Freddie Brown inadvertently gave the ball to James Worthy. I can't ignore that, Skip. Obviously, when you consider the fact that Michael Jordan hit basically what amounts to the game-winning shot, you can't ignore that. One of my favorite national championship games of all time, Skip, was when Arkansas, Nolan Richardson's 40 minutes of hell, beat Duke. I believe it was in 1994. It was like 76, 72.
Yeah.
They were going back and forth. I absolutely loved that game. I also loved when Corliss Williamson and those boys beat Grant Hill and them too, if I remember correctly. It was a couple of games where I've watched it, and it was just big time. It was something big to see, there's no question. But for me, what stands out in my mind was last night because of the ending. If it were not for that ending, I'd think about Keith Smart in Indiana.
Yeah. It's a great ending.
Winning the national championship, 74-73. That was a great ending. I think about the 82 national championship game. I'd obviously think about Duke, Arkansas. There's no question about that. But because of the manner in which this game ended, with a shot at the buzzer to win the national championship, to me, that supersedes everything. I'd also add this one on my list, Skip. What about Arizona in 1997, I believe, beat Kentucky when they had Bibby and Miles Simon, who was the most valuable player for the Final Four. You know, you had Jason Terry coming off the bench in that game. I mean, that was a big-time national championship game as well, and it went into overtime. But because of the way this ended, with Jenkins hitting the shot from the buzzer, and it wasn't some miracle either where you're just throwing it up and, you know, it's a heave. No, this was a pure straight three. Okay? Elevated, followed through, pure gold at the buzzer to win the national championship. This goes down as number one to me. It goes down as number one.
Good. We finally agree on something. Number one.
We finally. Miracles do happen. Miracles do happen.
When you finished that, I was thinking of your Gatorade commercial. This is the one even you can't deny.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's exactly what I thought of. Finally,
Bingo.
We have one.
Touché.
Yes.
I like it.
We are going to take a hard left turn, though, up next to a very serious subject. Greg Hardy sat down with our Adam Schefter, and you won't believe what he had to say. Please stick around for the guy's reaction. We'll get into this when we come back.